What's up, everybody? Welcome to DECKSIDE episode 3. Today, we're talking about capturing and documenting a movement with France's Bored Apela. Insanely talented documentarians, and super excited to see what they're capturing. Man, let's bring up our friends. We got Mike, we got Joe. Welcome up, gentlemen. How you doing today?
What's going on? Thanks for having us.
Awesome, man. Well, let's start with it. You guys collectively are Francis Bored Apela, but individually, you're Mike and Joe. If you don't mind, let's do a little intro and talk about who you guys are and how you got into Web3. Maybe what you were doing before you even stumbled into the Web3 experience.
Sure. Real quick, there is one more guy on our team. His name's Logan, and he's our DP. He's the third partner in Francis Bored Apela, but super valuable part of our team. And we wouldn't be able to do half the shit we do without him. So props to Logan.
Hey, shout out Logan.
Yeah, shout out Logan. All right, that's what people do.
I had an opportunity to meet all three of you guys. And I think you've met Jason earlier on because I think you interviewed him early on, but I had an opportunity to meet you guys in Venice. I think that was the first time that I got to meet you all at the NFTBA event and saw you guys in action, interviewing apes, finding people. So, your story is pretty interesting on how all three of you guys came together. I'd love for you all to maybe share a little bit about that. What was that journey and coming together and embarking on this journey together?
Yeah, our sort of journey is we had all worked together and made a movie a couple years ago about professional foosball, and so the three of us sort of became like a filmmaking team, and we went on the road and we met all these foosball players and we filmed at Foosball World Championships, and so we became this sort of tight filmmaking team. And I had gotten into Web3 kind of through work. I do work at Yahoo Sports, and so I had done a story on NBA Top Shot, and that led to a story on Zed Run. And so I was like sort of totally knew nothing of Web3, had no crypto, no nothing, and I did this story for work, just like literally like do a story for the website. And so I had to research a bunch and especially for Zed. And so I followed all these people on Twitter. I made a special Twitter account just to like organize all the sort of, NFT Web3 people. And then what happened was one night, all the Zed Run people suddenly changed their pictures to apes. And I was sort of like, what the heck is going on? What is this thing? And initially I was kind of like more into Zed Run and just like, I'm into the gaming NFTs and that's the future of it. And like, just like these pictures of apes, I don't, at least on midnight, that was like, I went to the website on midnight and I was like, they're doing a YouTube slow beats. And I was like, no, it's all about like horse breeding and the future is these sort of complex games or whatever. And so I didn't get it the first night and I was like, I just faded it and I was like, this is like the flavor of the week, right? It went and it was like we were waiting on a horse drop, and so I was like, let's just focus on the horse drop at the end of the week. And but then the horse drop was a disaster, and I didn't get a horse. And what I saw was over the next couple of weeks, I really saw people.
I remember that one too.
Yeah, it was like one of the ones that was like different tiers, and one of these ones were it was a mess. And so I had no horse, and bitterly I was just on the timeline, and still all my horse research people had changed to apes. And I'd started seeing what people were doing. Like I think I probably saw Baron some of the stuff you were doing, and I think I saw Josh, and it was like I started seeing people like make stuff and get really passionate about these apes, and it really just sort of growing in such a fast way. And it was the night of that first merch drop when it sold out in like 2 seconds. And having like been a little bit into sneakers and other like hype stuff, I was like, this is crazy how fast this merch dropped out, and no one like knows about this. And so it kind of hit me, and I was like, there's a story here, there's a world here. It felt very much similar to foosball, like a small little world that not a lot of people knew about. And so it hit me that, but I was like, how do we tell the story? How do we tell what's going on here? There's all these like crazy drops, and Punk's comic was minting, and all this kind of other stuff was going on. And so it hit me that night. I was like, wait a second, if we buy an ape, we can use the ape to like be the director and use the IP and use it in the way people are making stories and telling things online and starting to do stuff online. We can use that to do this whole movie and this whole documentary, and like we'll buy the ape, and the ape will be our like character that we animate, but we'll also, by buying the ape, we'll figure out what buying an NFT is and what digital ownership is and what it means to be in this club, and like we'll experience ourselves, and what is this new thing. And so I had this idea like late at night, and I immediately called Joe the next morning, and he knew nothing about NFTs, nothing. I was like, listen, there's this ape project. People are changing their avatars. There's you get the IP rights, and we got to buy one. I think they're about an ETH at that time, or a little bit less. And so I was like, let's film ourselves. And I need like I think I was like, I need $500 from each of you. I called Joe and Logan. I was like, I need $500 from each of you. Like, I need $500 from each of you, like as quick as possible to buy these apes, because they started going up right after the merch drop. There was that like, they were at about like half an ETH, and they were quickly rising to 1. And so I was like, and I think they knew nothing about it, but they saw how kind of crazy, like I was like crazed. And I was like sending them pictures, and I was like, you don't understand, this one's going up. And like, then Joe would be like, oh, this is a cool one. Like, it has a piece of pizza in its mouth. And I was like, we'll never be able to afford that one. Are you crazy? And it was like, it was that weekend that Captain Trippy sold. And so I was like, this one just sold. I was like, they're going crazy. And I kept sending him text. I was like, there's like this many under an ETH. So I was like, there's like, 80 left under an ETH. And so we were like, I think I
what the fuck he was talking about.
Yeah.
He was like one under an ETH. He had to like really walk me through. I remember you texted me before you called me with all these pictures, and it was like a crackhead who was like, hey bro, like, do you have any cash? I'll write you a check today, and you can cash it in like 3 days, but I just need the cash like right now. Like, I was like, dude, what are you talking about? What the fuck? And then he called me and walked me through. I'm like, okay, I've never seen Mike so passionate or excited about anything in my entire life. I've known him for like almost 20 years, like 15.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I had never seen him so wigged out, but in a really good way,
right,
or excited. And he's like, yeah, this is like a really cool. We didn't know what the story was. We didn't know anybody who owned a Bored Ape. We didn't know any of the founders. We didn't know anything except for what was just on Twitter, and what Mike had seen with all the people that he was doing his story about Zed Run they had all changed their profile pics. But I think you texted us or you first told us about it on a Saturday, and I was like, okay, this is cool. Let's pitch Logan, and this is such a weird thing. Let's film the pitch to Logan, and he wasn't available that day, so we had to wait a day. And then by that time, the floor price, I didn't know how crazy the market was. I was just like, yeah, let's just wait a day so we can film it. Let's do it right.
Yeah.
Floor price went up 50% in one day, and then in another day it went up another 50%. So our budget went from we need $500 for an ape to we need like over $1,000 each.
Oh my goodness!
The original idea was I was always advocating like, oh, let's all each get one, but I'm more of the let's take our time and do it right. Mike's like, no, you don't understand. These are flying off the shelf. We got to do it now, and I just didn't understand. But
we're gonna do a whole crew, like a director and a producer and like a PA, and like yeah. And then it from concept to us being able to film like 3 days later the floor trip. So we're like, we can now afford one.
What were you guys trying to film? The whole purchasing experience and like the whole beginning of it, like finding it and making it your own?
Well, we were it was at that point where, we knew that there was something. So what else could we film really? And if we're going to buy an ape, in my head, it was always, okay, this is something that is ballooning in value. Like, let's document what it could do for us. Like, what if it gets to $1 million or 100,000? Like, what would that be like for us as collectors? And that was in my head, like the starting point, right? Like, how could that affect us as people? Like, where do you see, our experience going from there? So let's film what we can, right? Let's film us buying crypto, buying the ape, and then film each other like reacting to the shit on Twitter, and then slowly meeting people in the community. This is before they even had, events, right? Like, nobody was meeting in real life. It was still COVID. It was still everybody's anonymous on the internet. So people weren't really having meetups. And I think it was Mike, you went to that first one in LA, where people were really starting to come out of their computers and talk to each other in real life. But yeah, I had not owned any crypto leading up to this. I had Dogecoin, like everybody in early 2021. I think I had Doge, AMC, and I didn't have any GameStop. I missed that. But I had never bought anything on Coinbase. So there was also an issue of buying it, but then I needed like to wait a couple days before it could actually transfer out of my Coinbase wallet to pay for the shit. So I don't know. I'm just re-looking at some of the footage from that day, and it's hilarious.
We filmed ourselves like setting up a MetaMask. Like I had about 3 weeks of experience under my belt, and I think I had bought like 2 NFTs or something like at that point. And so it was us, but like for a tiny bit of money, and I could buy like $200 on MetaMask. We had to figure out like getting more than $200 and getting it through Coinbase and getting account. So it was like this sort of like what we thought was gonna be a quick shoot of mostly us browsing apes turned into this kind of like us bumbling around trying to figure out crypto and MetaMask and like getting into the whole world of it. So really like starting from like total outsider perspective, I think is sort of how we jumped into the move. Like there's something cool here. We don't know what it is, but we know that we want to follow the story, and how to better to follow the story than by joining the club ourselves. And that was sort of like as much as we had done it. It was very different than our last one because foosball was like, we knew the date of the World Championship when we started. We know on this date at this time there's going to be a winner, and we'll have an ending to the movie. This was kind of like, we don't know what this is. There's something cool going on here. We don't know what it is, and not a lot of people are paying attention to it. But I think we can pay attention to it in a cool way that allows us to experience it, but also then it gives us this kind of like character and director that it becomes our kind of like guide into the rabbit hole.
I think Mike, your first pitch to like what the ending could be was, what if one day the Bored Ape we buy is worth 50 grand, and then there's an auction at Christie's where they're selling another Bored Ape? Like that could be like this spectacular end to the movie, and then that should happen like a month later. We're like, all right, like, okay, that's not the ending. So like, what is it? And then everything just went crazy.
Well, so like one of the reasons we really thought it would be great to talk with you guys is because when we're here on DECKSIDE, we do a lot of prompt bases for our interviews, right? And for us here, thinking capturing and documenting a movement, you guys started to capture something, but how did you know, or how did you decide to go with it for such a long period of time, right? Because all of a sudden it went from the stumbling, bumbling beginning to, damn, you hit that Christie's auction, that thing you just said, and in almost the first part of the club. Then all of a sudden, what registers is like, this is bigger than we ever anticipated. We got to go further and deeper, because if I'm right, you guys have been working on this over a year, almost 2 years now, correct?
Over 2 years. We bought our ape. So Mike first pitched it to us in May of 2021, and that's where we could have bought 3 and we didn't. But we bought our ape June 1st, and yeah, we've been filming ever since. Not every day, obviously. Like we have regular lives and we have other projects we're doing, but I think the moment that we bought it, we were invested in it, not just financially, but invested in it from a story standpoint, like to see where does this go from here. And for the longest time, like it was every day, like the price is like getting higher and higher. So we're like, okay, like we can't sell now. Like we can't end the movie now. Like we didn't know who the founders were. We didn't know anybody in the club. And then, finally there was the events in LA, there was Ape Fest. And then 2 months later, or however many, they announced the second Ape Fest, and then all these celebrities start buying it. And it was just, okay, we're in this for the long haul. We got to see, continue documenting and unraveling this story.
Yeah. I feel you guys have like maybe, I don't know if there's anyone else that have put a focus on documenting their experience right from the jump. And so that's really interesting to me because, both Jason the Ape and myself, we have our own journey and experience. And as far as documenting it, it's mostly me going through my camera roll, going through screenshots of like, oh man, remember this top bid? And then like, look at this chat that we had right over here. But for you all to have that intention to document it, I think is really, really intriguing and unique. So
I think part of that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But part of that is we live in such a content-based culture, right? Everyone just, films themselves, posts it online, and they're on to the next thing. People have like zero attention span for anything. And, Mike and I, like, we don't not content creators on Twitter or YouTube or anything. We've started in the more traditional media, making, you know, feature films and television. So for us, I think it would have been easy if we were just YouTubers or whatever to buy an ape and then we see how much it gets in value and then fucking sell it and then move on to the next thing, because it's all about the now. But for us as filmmakers with long form storytelling, we knew that we have to see this thing through to the end, right? So it's I think it would have been much easier for us to abandon the project if we were just doing stuff for Twitter or you know, Twitch or whatever, if we were just pumping out content every day. But for us, like, we have it all, we just haven't, you know, put it out there yet.
So as you're like capturing all this content and you're documenting this over the last 2 years, like what is the narrative that starts to develop? Do you guys have a particular like point you're trying to make, or is it just capturing all of it and then editing it in a nice, you know, way to view it?
I think it's just sort of really telling the like definitive story of BAYC and the whole sort of space over the last sort of 2 years. You know, anyone that's sort of been here living it, I think it's like it's sort of what's been going on, the sort of crazy twists and turns, the highs and lows of it all. And I think that that's part of the reason when we started. I think when we started, we're like, we'll follow this for maybe a year, no matter what. But it's sort of, the story sort of felt like it's constantly changing and evolving and never quite ending. Like there was always like another corner to look around or to keep following it. So I think that for us, it's like the narrative is just sort of the true kind of lived experience of these last 2 years of the crazy ride of BAYC, but also the sort of Web3 as a whole and everything that's sort of gone on and everything that's sort of, you know, come and gone over these last 2 years. And I think now sort of as we're finishing up and editing it and coming to sort of land the plane, so to speak, it's kind of like where, you know, what's sort of the next chapter? What's this, you know, what it's sort of, you know, for BAYC, I think it's very much kind of other side and sort of some of these more global events they're starting to do. But then also the space as a whole, you know, what are the sort of lasting things? What are the things that go away? And I think that's the interesting ride. I think that if we take an audience on in a really sort of true lived way, outside of kind of some of the headlines or some of the things that I think people that haven't been in it the last 2 years sort of know in a very surface level about NFTs and BAYC.
Yeah, and to go off of that, I mean, we've all been on the receiving end of all the, you know, Yahoo News articles about Justin Bieber losing $1 million on his Bored Ape, right? And we've seen all the stuff on the internet, you know, news stories that are usually just, again, it's that attention economy. It's just going with what's going to get a click and then moving on. And I feel like it does a disservice to the actual story and reality, because there's so much more nuance to the space of you know, Web3 and Bored Ape Yacht Club specifically, like you know, being able to tell something that's true and authentic, but also like fun and irreverent too. You know, that's one thing Mike and I, because there's an emotional roller coaster too that you go on when you own an ape and you're like, well, we can't sell it because we're making the movie. You know, there's like there's like that struggle where like, fuck, this thing's worth 400 grand. We should just sell it and scrap the movie, you know, like that in your head. You're like, what are we even doing this for? But ultimately, you know, it comes down to wanting to tell the story in a real way, and not just one that's going to be sensationalized and one-sided. It's like, this is, you know, we want to tell the real story.
That's admirable, man, because it's definitely hard to not want to take your $1,000 investment and walk away, you know, with $500,000 and split that amongst friends. And, you know,
Yeah.
I definitely know there was a time where both Nana and myself considered it, because how could you not? But you're absolutely right. You see the vision of the club, the kind of community aspect that you develop with your friends, and there's more to this story still to develop, you know, and I love that you guys see that. But when you say you're starting to land the plane, that means you're starting to get to a point where maybe you're wrapping up what you guys have been filming, and we might get to see something relatively soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to, or I guess I would hate to make a promise of like, hey, the movie's going to be available this date, because, you know,
Sure.
that's up to distributors and everything else. But as far as filming and everything, you know, we're on you know, closer to being done than not. I would say we should have something done like by the end of the year ish.
Wow.
So, you know, I think that puts us in a good spot.
That's awesome. You know, with the intention of just interviewing people, going to events, I'm curious on without giving away too much on your actual film, I'm curious on like some of the highlights, that were really surprising, maybe some things you didn't expect, that you took away from this experience of creating this documentary about BAYC. Any insights you care to share?
I think everything has been unexpected. If I'm being completely fucking honest,
Yeah.
there's not been one thing where I'm like, oh yeah, that was gonna happen. It was every day. Mike and myself, we would just text, be like, "Yo, Steph Curry bought a fucking Bored Ape. What the fuck is going on now?" The Christie's thing, the ape events. I think, in a general sense, what I was most intrigued by, or I continue to be interested in, is what people are doing with their IP, and how this is essentially, these brand ambassadors are going out and doing these things, opening up coffee shops, and breweries are using their Bored Ape to market their beer, and we've all been to the ape events where you go home with a huge pockets full of like weed because people are doing yeah, ape water.
I got my ape water right here that I'm drinking all the time.
Yeah, I mean, so that to me has been unexpected, because going into crypto, I knew, like, again, I knew headlines of articles, not really knowing, having a lived experience. So seeing that it wasn't that people were actually doing some real world stuff, I thought was really interesting. And also the idea of a crypto bro and what that means, I think has changed significantly in meeting people in real life, and finding out that there's a lot of people that are just regular people who are just like us, who are, they have day jobs, they have families, they have hobbies, but they all sort of found this commonality. And Mike had compared it a little bit to foosball. It's very similar in a way, because in foosball there was people from all walks of life. You had doctors, lawyers, dudes who owned dispensaries. You had guys that were almost homeless, but they had this weird commonality with foosball. And now, in crypto, I feel like everybody comes from different walks of life.
So you talked about distribution. You're probably thinking of some different ways. How do you plan on distributing the film?
I mean, the goal is for it to be on a top tier platform like Netflix, Hulu, HBO. We're repped at UTA, United Talent Agency.
Awesome.
I have a good relationship with Netflix. I worked on a show with them for 7 years, an animated show, and I've done work with them in the past. So that's the goal. I do think there's I mean, I want the movie to be seen by as many people as possible. I mean, at bottom line, and our intent is not to make like something that a community of 10,000 will enjoy, and that's it. It's going to be a movie for a broad audience, because we came into this as outsiders, as fish out of water, and I think that gives us a unique perspective into this, and I think that our background in just storytelling and filmmaking will help make this story accessible to all, not just a tiny. And I do hope, and I think that people in the community are going to love it too. So
I can't wait. I can't wait. I would love to be able to sit down, turn on Netflix or Hulu or whatever, and watch the story of the club just kind of unfold through your experience. Because, I have seen you guys, like Sean said, at a lot of different events over the last 2 years, and you're always in the experience. It's not like you're just an outsider who stayed an outsider. You were an outsider who became part of the actual culture. I mean, you're wearing a mutant hoodie right now. That, you know what I mean? Like, it becomes bigger than just it's not a community anymore. It actually becomes friends, right? And so when I see you guys in real life, it feels like you're seeing a friend for a moment that you haven't seen in a while. Have you guys acquired any of those, friends along the way as you documented this experience, that you started off with an interview, but now you're actually working with, or your pals, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, the tricky thing is not everyone lives in the same town, so they all become internet friends. But I would say, I don't know if we shared this yet, but Hydra Animation is our animator for the movie. Jack, and he's over in London, but he was one of the first people we had actually like built a relationship with early on, because we had seen for people who don't know, I mean, he's done so much shit of recent, but he was the guy who was animating celebrity PFPs like when they first joined the club, and he was doing people in the community as well. And we really dug his style and thought he was great. So we hit him up like really early.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
Does
just
everything for a kingship too, right?
he does kingship. He's done I'm probably fucking up not giving him all the credit he deserves, but yeah, like his whole credit list. But he's just a fantastic animator, and you know, he's become a friend. And just people you see at these events, man, you know, you see him, you know, every couple months or even a year apart, and it's just fun to, you know, we all join this thing so early, and there's like this weird bond and commonality that you share with people who are there in the beginning, even if you share nothing else in common. It's like, oh yeah, like you were there back in May and June scrolling on OpenSea for, you know, buying ape pictures and spending a couple $1,000s on them. It's a weird thing. But yeah, there's been, I don't know, a lot of people, I think.
There's something amazing about seeing somebody like, oh, I remember when we first met and we hung out like outside of this bar in Venice, and then boom, now we were like in this warehouse in Brooklyn in this crazy concert we never thought we'd be at, and then boom, a year later, now we're on this roof in Miami overlooking the beach. Like I feel like the whole journey has been so surreal, and then it's amazing to meet these other people that you're like also popping up on this surreal journey with together, and there's that sort of instant like connection, I think, and seeing people, you know, even if you only see them a couple times a year, there's sort of amazing collective journey that we're all on, you know, on our computers, but then we then sort of meet up together in real life. And I think that's been one of the sort of the funnest continued things for me about the whole journey.
Yeah, I think especially considering like when this all started, you all referenced it, you know, people were locked down, you know, it was during COVID. I think a lot of people had this urge to connect, you know, and have genuine connections with people in a moment of time where the entire world was kind of just locked in to people's homes, and everyone kind of resorted to the internet to kind of like, you know, speak with others, work with others, socialize. But as soon as things started to pop back up and everyone was really interested into this new thing, that we didn't know where it was all going, to have these surreal experiences has just been, you know, and to see that we're s- we're all still showing up. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is still going on. I think that's what's like crazy about that. I definitely had that moment like at Pier 17 in New York at A Fest where I'm like, oh, you know, it's casually like, you know, Future is, you know, in the background while I'm having a conversation with Jason, you know, one of my best friends in the world. So
While you're sipping a latte with your ape on the foam, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like everything
man.
about that is just so fucking weird and so crazy.
Well, I'm sipping on a double captain, which is one of the drinks they had.
So yeah, I love all the events, and I look forward to, you know, seeing how you guys capture more in the future. I'm bummed I'm not going to Hong Kong. Are you guys going to be making it out to Ape Fest to capture that and add it to this experience?
Yeah, that's the plan. I think one of again, to talk about what was unexpected, I think the global nature of the whole thing has been really interesting, and I think it's really important for the movie that we showcase that international component to this. Like, Bored Ape Yacht Club isn't just in the United States and Canada. It's not just people who speak English. It's global, and it's all over the world. And that'll be a great opportunity for us to help showcase that. We've traveled a bit elsewhere in the past, but I think whatever they're doing in Hong Kong is going to be cool, and it'll give us a chance to really get to know some of the other apes abroad.
You know, it seems that there's you know, you all had mentioned it a little bit earlier about things shaping into Otherside and how much, you know, this club has evolved to this kind of nature of like we're meeting up in the metaverse, we're doing a lot of things digitally. What's your take on the direction on how things are moving to the metaverse or to the other side?
I think it's cool. I used to play video games back when I was a kid, you know, but as of recent years, I'm just a little too busy with work and family and stuff. But again, another unexpected thing when we bought our Bored Ape, for $3,000 before there was any news articles written about it. At least for me, I never imagined that they were going to turn into a blockchain gaming company with all these different games and a metaverse and doing everything else that they're doing. So I think it's cool. It's definitely unexpected. I think it's fun. I'm excited. I mean, we have our other deeds that we minted plus the ones we got for being apes. So I'm excited to see what happens with it for sure.
Do you think there's a time maybe where we get to watch your movie in the metaverse together as apes? Because I think that would be insane.
I think that'd be awesome, man. I think that'd be really fun. I think what better way to bring it all full circle than to do that,
Yeah, I think doing the 2 trips, there was something that's like it was such a fun, unique group experience going through those together, and then seeing people sort of either I was in a Discord with people, and then seeing it sort of evolve on Twitter is something that I think is very those are 2 sort of very unique experiences. And again, yeah, I'm not the hugest gamer either, but both of those trips were a lot of fun and felt kind of like a unique shared experience. I'm excited to see how it evolves.
I thought Dookie Dash was a lot of fun. That was kind of a throwback to the old video games. I played that quite a bit. I haven't done much of the heavy metal one though.
Yeah, heavy metal.
Not because I don't like it. I just I kind of ran out of bandwidth.
It takes a lot of time.
There's probably a documentary in itself with our experience with heavy metal, dude, and just like what we've been experiencing as a community. It's been absolutely nuts. But when it comes to Hong Kong Ape Fest, I'm really looking forward to joining digitally, whatever that means. They kind of mentioned that there's going to be obviously the physical experience where everyone's meeting up in Hong Kong and everyone's going to just go crazy over there. But for all the club members that can't make it to Ape Fest in Hong Kong, I'm excited to learn what does this digital experience kind of look like.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
So I know I want to ask you a few things before we let you guys go for the day, but because there's still so much to unpack with what you guys have been cultivating as you capture this whole movement. But Sean had brought to my attention recently that you guys had an AIP up, and you told me earlier AIP 303. So I would love to learn a little bit more about this. I'm trying very hard myself to get more involved in the DAO and understand all the proposals, all the cool things happening, and this was an aside that I found out you guys were doing this after I was already eagerly looking forward to talking to you about capturing and documenting your the movement rather. So if you could tell us a little bit about that, I'd love to learn.
Yeah, the DAO. We submitted our proposal a couple months ago, and same thing. We were sort of aware of the DAO and kind of follow some of the bigger proposals, but hadn't really kind of jumped in, fully to kind of understand it. And yeah, and we submitted our proposal, I think, early July, and have been going through the process of it. And I think it's another thing I think that we want to use it to sort of get some of the finishing funds for the movie, some of the stuff we can't do, like animation and some of the sound mixing and legal stuff. So that's sort of what we're using for the funds for. But I think the other really cool thing about the DAO and what they've been doing, and our sort of the fact that our movie is kind of about making the movie itself and how Web3 can kind of sort of create art and projects is showing the DAO process in the movie itself, showing what we've been going through, showing, the sort of collecting votes and meeting other communities and how that kind of works, and how, if it goes through, how the audience could watch something that was sort of funded by the DAO and sort of see how it works in process, and then as you're watching the final product from it. So it's been really interesting. It's been a really cool thing. And yeah, another thing too that we've really kind of been diving into head first the last couple months.
Yeah, and up until this point and to this day, we've been self-funding the movie out of our own pocket, and we thought one of the cool things that I've discovered about Web3 is this idea that you can do things in a non-traditional way, and traditional media has always been not ideal for creators, to put it lightly.
Especially independent stuff like docs and smaller projects.
Yeah. Whether it's music, whether it's movies, whether it's art, and we thought what better way to actually, get finishing funds for the movie and to help pay for the movie than to utilize this Web3, this sort of non-traditional way of making art and making projects and bringing these projects to life. Because, traditional media, there's a million gatekeepers, and you have to have XYZ set up, and this, it's community, and if a community can vote and has the power to vote and help bring these creations to life, I think that's really powerful. I think that's really fun, and that's what sort of the movie is about, is this power of community, and to actually see it play out, not just with other people's projects, but with our own. I think it'd be really cool.
The Bored Ape Yacht Club was a huge part of creating the ApeCoin DAO. You know what I mean? At least kicking off, even though they're separate entities now. But I think it's with the community in mind. Like, hey, if the community was empowered with a DAO that has a treasury to really create, to bring culture into the metaverse, and fulfill some of these ideas with some energy, a lot of us could actually become beneficiaries and empowered to put out some of these really cool ideas and projects. And this one is definitely something I want to see come to life. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, us too.
Yeah.
It'll be fun to finally go to an event where we're not having to film and work and be distracted with a million different things, and lugging 11 cases of camera gear all across New York City, and through different airports and shit. It'll be nice to
properly drink at one of these things.
Yeah.
I mean, most recently, Sean and I were at the Other Side Yuga event, and we saw you guys there, and I saw one of your partners with a gigantic rig. He was like inside of a circle almost,
Yeah, that's I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'm like, Jesus, that's a lot of equipment. But you guys are doing awesome work. I saw you sitting down with Garga, and those are the conversations that I look forward to seeing. But you've also interviewed community members, so I'm really excited to see the story you guys are telling. I'm certain that the community is going to love it. Just to look back and see, your friends and moments that we all collectively shared, because like you said earlier, we all got to be there with each other, and some people missed out. So they'll have an option to look back in time and kind of glance at what they missed. So super excited to see that, guys.
It's definitely a moment in time, and I'm glad we've been able to capture it. It's I think we'll all look back. Yeah, thinking back to last year feels like it was 10 years ago. I know that's cliche to say in Web3 or whatever, but it's so fucking true, man. It's like, I feel like I've lived 10 lifetimes since we bought our ape.
Well, awesome, you guys. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you all talking about your documentary, and I can't wait to see it. So,
hell yeah! Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys.
Awesome, guys. Bye.
Cool.